as they might say in the deep south. Oh my lordy lord. Well, especially when something comes with a price tag this far north of the 3-figure mark. How much did I pay for this orchid? More on this later in the video. Firstly, I'd noticed some anomalies in this huge, big, magnificent specimen of an orchid. So let's air all the dirty laundry out and see what we can learn from it. Welcome to the Nature Company. If this is the kind of information you're interested in, please hit that subscribe button down below if you haven't already, and that notification bell to be notified of all our upcoming content so you don't miss out on a thing. So when you're looking at buying anything, especially something that may just break the bank, you want to inspect it closely first. And just at a glance, you can notice something about this orchid. It's huge! but really, there's a few little things that caught my eye that didn't quite add up, and so I had to look into it a bit deeper. We were told that this was a Dendrobium Mousmee, and we were told some anecdotal stories about its history and its past. So this 40-plus-year-old amazing orchid, Dendrobium Mousmee, this is a hybrid between Dendrobium amabile and Dendrobium thyrsiflorum. This specific color form is called egg yolk, and we can see why with this beautiful whiteness with the egg yolk yellow in the center. We also notice this fine white on the lip. Then when I looked more closely at the orchid, I saw some things didn't quite add up, and so I started looking a bit deeper. And the first thing we had to look at, or the first thing that was noticeable, were those flowers. Those huge, big, pendulous spikes of flowers. Yeah, that's something you can expect from a Mousmee, which is a primary hybrid of Dendrobium amabile cross thyrsiflorum. And you would expect those big, chunky flower spikes like that. But one thing was missing. We were expecting to see that pink blush that amabile has got. This is always passed down into its progeny. So here all we can see is that yellowish tinge to the flower as they start opening, and as they age, that yellowish fades to a cream, almost to a crystal clear white as the flower ages. So we really are missing those pink tinges that we were expecting to see. And then when we had a look at the canes, we noticed something about them. With thyrsiflorum, we get these nice cylindrical canes that are slightly club-shaped. They do taper down to a very narrow base, but they don't have any particular width to them. They generally keep a fairly cylindrical shape, although they are ridged. And with Dendrobium amabile, we have almost an entire tube. The circumference remains pretty much the same from tip to base, and you just get this one long cylinder. And here we have something slightly different. We have almost a squareness to the upper end of these canes. And that's indicative of something else. But also, looking at these canes, we notice the color of them. They're quite a bright off yellow-green, which is typical of a lot of Dendrobium species, especially the thyrsiflorums and other Dendrobium species. But the amabile has got a particular color. It's got a darkness to it, almost a brown, so we're almost expecting the same sort of coloration to be passed down from parent to child. It is one of those genetic traits that is generally carried forward. But here in this one, we see none of that. This is an amazing specimen, and almost 200 flower spikes on this plant at the moment. And again, if we look back at those magnificent flowers, we notice there's that little white edge or tip to the lip of each of those flowers. And this also reminds us of another specific dendrobium that we know quite well. And So it makes us think a little bit, because there's no pink blush and we have this little white edge to the lip that sort of bleeds up into that beautiful egg yolk yellow in the lip, and it's got that fine little frill around the bottom of it. So these are all little clues that we're keeping our eye on. And then, having listened to the backstory, the history of the plant, and with this specific plant they've been trying to propagate it for many years now, and the divisions just don't want to take. So this is one of those special plants that you're only going to be able to get as this amazing mother plant. Something rings a bell. She tells us that she's been having difficulty, or she's found it impossible to propagate from this plant by taking back bulbs and cuttings and divisions off it. None of them have ever taken. And no matter what they've done to it, they've all just rotted and died. So this rang a bell to me. I know just the dendrobium that does this to me all the time. And I've had to fight that terrible fight and not win. So what are we looking at here then? Well, with all these hints put together, I'm beginning to suspect that it's a Dendrobium densiflorum cross Dendrobium farmeri. The farmeri is one of those ones that really hates their roots and pseudobulbs being disturbed. This one was a great big massive plant, so all I'd done was separated one half of it off and see what happened. The majority of the pseudobulbs that were close to where the division took place all have died back, only leaving new growth from the front. This is so common with farmeri. They really don't like being disturbed like that. And when you put them with that iffy Dendrobium densiflorum, who also is a bit neither here nor there on wanting to propagate by cutting, we obviously get something that just won't enjoy it at all. This plant was bought on by the original nursery manager, and he had it for around 20 years. And then the company itself then bought it on from him, holding it for another 20. So this plant is at least 40 years old. And they've had to manufacture this incredible structure specifically for the plant. It's a circular stand with a hanging basket type formation in the middle that's holding up the plant itself. And obviously this hasn't been repotted since. This has all just been growing in and around itself for all those years, producing this huge magnificent ball of blooms. So suddenly all those little traits come together, the squareness of those pseudobulbs from both the densiflorum and the farmeri, to produce that squareness to the upper part of those pseudobulbs, and that flower from the farmeri that gets that white edge to the lip with that fine little frill around the edge. It's all adding up to a closer match. And when you're mixing the albiforms of both the densiflorum and the farmeri, you're surely going to land up with a white flower with no flushes of that pink. So this is just a little deduction from my observation powers, but then to me, remember, 2 + 2 is 5. So take it with a pinch of salt. And anyway, this is a magnificent specimen. And I would almost suggest that this Dendrobium farmeri hybrid is more rare than the Mousmee hybrid, as the Mousmee is actually quite vigorous and relatively easy in respects compared to this hybrid. Either way, how much would you pay for a monster magnificent orchid like this? It would be quite interesting to see how much different people would be willing to pay for such a beautiful plant. And it would be interesting to see the value that they assign to it. So perhaps If it was yours, how much would you sell it for? Drop it down in the comments below. Let's see who comes up with what. Do a buy, sell kind of thing. And sadly enough, I was one day too late. Someone had come the afternoon before us and we missed out on getting this beauty. But nonetheless, we've got this video now to remind us. So it's not going to be lost from our memory, and at least you get to see it now too. And if you really need to know how much they spent in the orchid, ask me in the comments below. I'll whisper it quietly to you. Let's leave it there. Thank you for watching. If you found any of this information helpful, please hit that like button, hit that subscribe button down below, and that notification bell, bing bong, to be notified of all our upcoming content so you don't miss out on a thing.